Why were the Jews and the Samaritans mortal enemies? To understand this, let's go back in time to when Jesus was here on earth. There were three major Jewish holidays: Passover, Shavuot, or Pentecost, and Sukkot, or Tabernacles. These were times when all the Jews would come up from all over the region to Jerusalem to celebrate in the temple. But there was one group of Jews who didn't come up for these holidays, and that was the Samaritans. Now, the Samaritans were from the northern kingdom of Israel. Their ancestors had intermixed with the people of other nations who lived around them. The Jews in the southern kingdom looked down on them, because they weren't as careful about keeping the laws of Moses as the Jews in the south. In fact, the Jews in the south claimed that the Samaritans had followed false gods and had even built their own temple on Mount Gerizim to worship in, which made the Samaritans into heretics as far as the Jews were concerned. The worst part was that the Samaritans had become experts at building roads and were wealthy from collecting tolls from travelers. So whenever the Jews from the south went up to Jerusalem for one of the three major holidays, they had to pass through Samaritan territory. And the Samaritans would charge them a toll and give them a hard time. And the Jews would get so angry that sometimes they would plan ahead and take a longer route that avoided the toll roads. Even though it might take them 2 or 3 days to get there, and it wasn't just the tolls. Samaritans also mocked the Jews for having to travel so far to worship in the temple in Jerusalem. They said, hey, if you believe that this is the only place where God can be found, then why don't you just build a temple here nearby on Mount Gerizim? Of course, the Jews would never do that, since they knew that God had specifically chosen Jerusalem for his temple. But it wasn't until Jesus came along that the situation started to change. One day, Jesus decided to take a shortcut through Samaritan territory. When the Samaritans saw him coming, they started to mock him, saying, hey, you're one of those Jews from the south, right? Why don't you go up to Jerusalem to worship? We know you're too cheap to pay the toll. Jesus didn't get angry. Instead, he sat down by the roadside and told them a few parables, and then he sent them on their way. After he had gone, a Samaritan woman, who was getting water from a well, said to him, I can see that you're a Jew, and that means that you're either a liar or an adulterer, because you don't believe in our holy mountain, and we know that the Messiah will come from there. Then Jesus told her about how he was the Messiah, and she immediately left everything and went to tell the people in her town what Jesus had said. So the very next day, Jesus and his disciples were invited to a house in town to celebrate a Sabbath meal with the Samaritans. It was there that Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan. After he had finished, a lawyer asked him, who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead.